and Paul's not here. I can move a motion, by the way. I checked the procedures. So I'll move that we amend the agenda to move adoption of minutes to be after the application submission. So that would be moving section 3 after section 4. Okay. Any questions? Any concerns? I need somebody to.
I second it.
Okay, thank you. That's Faye, right?
Yes.
Okay, Faye. And so any discussion? Otherwise, let's vote. Anybody in favor of amending the motion, adopting the motion as the agenda as amended? Okay, that passes. Rashir, I assume you're okay with that, since we're doing this all just for you. Okay, so let's now go right to the application submission, and we're going to try now. As I've indicated, I don't want to cut. We have to do justice to the application, but we're going to try to have it between the application, our questioning, the panel questioning, and panel comments. And all that's preceded by the staff presenting to us. Then we'll try to do it all in an hour, but we're not going to squeeze it unfairly. So with that, let's, and we only have this one application today, so we have a fair amount of time. Let's give it to its justice. So with that, I gather somebody will be presenting to us first.
Yep. Neetu will present to us first, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant to do their presentation, and then we'll turn it back to the chair.
And before we start with that, let's have introductions because we have a new person here for the guest. Harbinder, are you
That's right, Phil. I'm the applicant, the homeowner for the property.
Okay, and you will, and you, but there's an architect and landscape architect that you've hired, but you'll be speaking to the application.
That's right. I'll be doing the presentation today to the ADP, and hopefully can answer all the questions from all the reports that we have.
Okay, and I'm Phil Byer. I'm chair of the committee of the panel, and I'm a resident of White Rock, and we have Rashir, who's a landscape architect as a member, and Faye, who is a resident too. And I think that's, and Jim, who is an architect. Okay, so with that, let's start with, I guess, Neetu, are you doing? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Chair. I'm just gonna share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see it.
Yep.
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 Okay, so the purpose of this meeting is to present the ADP with a duplex proposal at 15439 Oxenham Avenue. I'll be presenting a brief overview of the project, and then we'll turn it to the applicant who can go over their presentation, the proposal, sorry, in more detail. So this is the subject property highlighted in red on the screen, and it is in context to lower profile single family detached homes. It is located south of the hospital lands and north of Oxenham Avenue. So the proposal is it's an application for a zoning bylaw amendment to enable a duplex development. An associated minor development permit also applies to this proposal, which is the subject of your review here today. The rezoning would be from the RS1 zone to a property-specific CD zone or a comprehensive development zone. The table on the screen shows details of the proposed CD zone. So since the property does not meet the minimum lot area required for the RT1 zone, and since a variance cannot be made as the lot area zone standard is tied to density, during the initial review of the application, it was recommended by staff that a CD zone be proposed and that it be modeled around the RT1 duplex zone standards. As you can see in the table, except for the minimum lot area highlighted in yellow, all other requirements in the proposed CD zone mirrors the RT1 duplex zone standards. So in terms of how this proposal aligns with our policies, the proposed development is within the mature neighborhood OCP land use designation. This designation is intended to build on the existing single-family housing stock while accommodating gentle infill housing like single-family homes, duplexes, and triplexes to support more housing choice and affordability within the city. There is also a policy that limits the number of duplexes along a block to 20% of one side of the street. And as part of the planning due diligence, we walked through that, and there is no issue with the number of duplexes in that context. The property is also located within the mature neighborhood infill development permit area, which is a form and character development permit area. So the zoning map on the slide shows the block which encompasses the subject property, which you can see highlighted in red. There are 2 existing RT1 zoned properties in the nearby area, and there are also 2 active applications for duplexes on Oxenham Avenue as well at the moment. So coming to the mature neighborhood infill DPA guidelines, it looks at ensuring compatibility with regard to height, density and design, avoiding mirror imaging designs, creating visual interest in the design like architectural details to break up the massing and form of the building, to create individual identity, using a variety of cladding colors, ensuring garages do not dominate the front of the home, using light colored reflective paving materials. Landscaping should be used in areas that are not covered by buildings and structures and other impermeable surfaces like driveways, selecting trees that maximize passive solar gain and natural cooling, and finally using low impact development techniques for stormwater management. So in terms of processes, we had a digital public information meeting held back in October of 2021. There were no attendees at this meeting. The file is being presented for the first time to the ADP today for review. The next step would be to present the zoning amendment bylaw to the Land Use and Planning Committee for rezoning, followed by a public hearing and subsequent meetings. So it's at this time, staff is looking for a recommendation of support for this proposal as we believe it meets the intent of the design guidelines. I'm happy to answer any questions on the memo or through you, Mr. Chair, I would hand it over to the applicant to speak on the proposal in more detail.
Thank you. Let me see if any of the panel members have questions about what you've just presented or the report that you sent to us.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. So you said that the bylaw allows for, if you can go to the page that shows the actual configuration of the number of homes on that street. That's it. So what's the 20% based on? Is it based on?
It's a single block
north
frontage. So I would
single block.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from 15421 to 15579 or across the street as well?
Yeah, I think it would be 20% off the single block frontage. So I would say it would be for properties on one side of Oxenham and potentially 4 on the other, but that's the due diligence we used, and it only says limiting. It is not. It is a vision. The OCP being a vision document, it is not a hard and fast rule, but it is recommended that we limit it to 20% to a single block frontage.
Okay, so thank you for that. The reason. Oh, sorry, Phil.
Well, I was going to say, is there another related to the 20% that they should not be next to, adjacent to each other?
Yes. Okay. Again, it's only a suggestion in the OCP. We try and follow it as much as we can, but if the proposal is good and it meets the intent of the design guidelines, we would consider the application.
But that's not the case here anyway. So.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Sorry, Faye.
No, it's not the case here, Phil. However, you said there are currently 2 active. So there's 2 already.
In the nearby area. So we have one here.
Oh, I
Which
thought it was
is-
on Oxenham that we're talking about.
I
No.
apologize. No, it's one here
Oh.
and one here. So right now along the north side of Oxenham, we have an existing RT1 duplex. We have an ongoing active application, and now we're talking about 15439, which is in discussion today. So there are only,
Okay, and then across the street,
is
that
another one
one-
is in an active application as well.
oh, they're active. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess, you know, it just being mindful of the number. You don't want the whole street to be, you know, semi-detached. I know it's a very good financial investment, but however, you have to look at that as well. Okay, thank you.
Anne, did you have a comment or question?
Thank you for that. Yeah, certainly. I just want to speak from a staff perspective, and when we review these types of things, it's part of our evaluation process, and the rezoning process is the council decision. So council would have the opportunity to consider the application and determine whether they see fit for the duplex to be, if we were talking about more duplexes, for example, it would be a council determination. In this case, we're here before the panel today to talk about the development permit components of it so that we can provide that information back to council as part of their contemplation of the application as a whole.
Okay, thank you.
Any other Jim or Rashir?
No, that's clear.
Actually, is Rashir still on?
Yeah, I just switched off my video for better bandwidth usage.
Okay, I didn't that's fine. If you switch off, I'll recognize your initials. Just perhaps for Jim and Faze, the ADP recently, a year or 2 ago, reviewed 2 of those 3 proposals on Oxenham already. So we already dealt with 2 of the 3 that were identified. This is our 3rd one. Okay, thank you. Jim, did you have any questions?
No questions, no.
Okay. Mine is a comment that the document that you sent us, your staff report, talks about a duplex design guidelines 2012. I mean, I've been on the ADP for several years, never heard about this before. So I was somewhat taken aback, and then I looked on the city website to say, why didn't I know about it? But staff never advised us about, at least never advised me. So my question really isn't so much, you know, I'm not gonna, whether I need to know about it or not, but it's 2012, is it still relevant, or is other things overtaken it? Is it still consistent with the OCP? Is it something that has fallen by the wayside and isn't really used very much? That's the duplex design guidelines.
So I believe it was discussed for the previous duplex application when the previous manager was presenting the application for another duplex in Oxenham, that these guidelines need to be revisited. But at this time, we are circulating this as part of the package for any duplex application. So I think we will take that into consideration when we do decide to visit updating these guidelines.
Okay, I think that the key thing for me as an ADP member, because we've always been focused on the permit guidelines. I mean, that's really been our focus, and what's important, and I haven't done a cross check between the duplex design guidelines 2012 and the development permit area guidelines, and I think it's critical for us to I would say that we have to go by what's in the ACP and the OCP, meaning those guidelines, and it would be make sure that if there's inconsistencies, and I don't know if there are, that they be flagged for either the ADP, but certainly for applicants, so we don't get into a misunderstanding. So is it fair that, maybe this is a question for Anne, how important our focus, like I said, has been the OCP guidelines. How much do we need to get into the duplex design guidelines, which are new to us?
So any design guidelines that are relevant to the application are what we are presenting as part of this package. So you'll have the opportunity to reflect on all of them. And that it's our responsibility is to make sure that the application is reviewed and cross-checked against all of the applicable guidelines and policies. So that is part of our due diligence as far as processing an application is concerned. If there is any discrepancy in the information that has been previously provided to the panel, that's good for me to hear. Definitely, we will make sure that we address that whenever we have new panel membership and we have to do like an orientation again. We'll make sure that we address that through that. So I appreciate that feedback as well.
So I don't want to, maybe, so here's a request. If you could send those guidelines to the ADP members with a note of identifying any area where we should be aware of a discrepancy with the OCP guidelines.
Sure, we'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, but yeah, for sure.
Because if we're going to rely on it, then we need that information. Okay, thank you. I guess this is taking a little longer, but I think we needed to deal with that. So now, if no more questions or comments related to staff, then let's go to the applicant, Harbinder.
Yes, thank you, Phil. I'm going to try to share the screen right now, so hopefully this works. Did that come through, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to present our project to the ADP committee. My name is Harbinder Diyal, and I'm the owner of the home at 15439 Oxenham Avenue, White Rock. Our proposal is construction from an RS1 single-family residential home to CD zoning based on RT1 standards, as Neetu mentioned already. We've had numerous communication with city staff throughout the design process to better meet or exceed their request. We have gone through many design integrations, and we hope the compromise we reach is acceptable to your panel. We followed City of White Rock official community plan and duplex design guidelines, which you've just discussed. Which we currently had, which have been considered in all aspects of our design. Sorry, one sec. So the second slide, this property is located north of Oxenham Avenue and east of Best Street. It is in a desirable neighborhood, White Rock, and considered a mature neighborhood, which is the ideal location for a duplex as per the OCP guidelines. When we look at the neighborhood, we have some of the views of the neighboring properties in the slide. I will speak briefly about the neighborhood context, which is important for the OCP and design guidelines. The neighborhood is a mix of older houses, newer single family and duplex homes. Adjacent to the street, you have similar homes again, older and new. Currently, there are new single family homes and duplex being constructed, several new RS1, RS4, different years such as 1970 to 1990 and currently 2020 to present year homes, which make it a mature and developing neighborhood for sure. So this shows the current completed duplex built in 2020 on 15541 and 15543 Oxenham Avenue, which has inspired us to follow a similar concept. We will be providing a better and improved version of this existing duplex following the current duplex design guidelines. The look of the house will be made with a high standard of craftsmanship and materials, accompanied by detailed landscape design. Taking a look from the street towards 15439 Oxenham, you will see it is in the same height perspective as the surrounding dwellings and will be a good fit as the area is becoming more and more developed. Not only is the dwelling modern, it has been designed in a way to work with a passive solar design, allowing for a greener design approach. The use of large glazing windows will reduce the need for internal lighting and the use of heat. The duplex will sit on a flat lot, which has followed vast majority of existing grading other than the sloped driveway to the garage as per city requirements. On that note, drainage has been worked into the design process to eliminate pooling of water and leakage. A drain will run across the front of the garage and rainwater leaders will draw water to other ends of the property. Each unit has its own look and appeal, but both units come with equal amounts of space and amenities. Large private backyards and balconies are all incorporated into the design. All in all, 15439 Oxenham will be another great addition to complement the existing duplex on the street and inspire more development, which is already happening again in an ideal situation for a maturing neighborhood. The current existing home, the one on the left, is an older home built in 1954, approximately 760 square foot house with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. It is an older and attractive home, which is not well insulated. It will be replaced by 2 modern units, which are energy efficient with flat roofs. As you know, since affordability is an issue in our city, the duplex will allow for 2 separate homes for families to grow. This slide shows the front and rear elevations following the community plan and to show a contemporary modern style building. To avoid mirroring, most significantly the cladding and roof lines along with the entrances will be distinguished between the 2 units. In order to follow the duplex guidelines, the material will be limited to 2 colors and material types to differentiate the units. I wanted to add in the left and right elevation to show the additional contextual elevations from the front and rear. When it comes to cladding material, again, we chose 3 stone hardy plank with fascia board and trim. The mass of the building is broken up with using these cladding material to differentiate the units. We did choose natural tones, which are suggested by the community plan. Further, we then also decided to use just these 2 colors and again differentiate the 2 units. The intent was to create a visual interest for each unit, which ensured that it integrated well into the overall streetscape. The floor plans, they show the 2 units. The main floor has an open concept with 1 extra room to use as an office space or bedroom for accessibility. Upstairs, we have 3 bedrooms per unit and 2 bathrooms per unit. The floor plans have been designed to demonstrate the overall livability of the units. The basement is open concept, which allows for extra square footage. There are separate double garage located for both units. For the old site plan, there are not many trees on the property with an existing hedge on the west side of the house to be intact and protected as per the municipal standards prior to construction. For the new site plan, the plantings, landscaping materials such as lawn have been shown to ensure uniformity between the submission materials. Also, location of protected trees to be retained and removed are shown in the site plan. It was important for us to visually present the proposal in the context of existing surrounding development in the form of realistic renderings and elevations. This shows a modern design which will avoid the mirroring with roof lines and cladding in real life situations. This shows the backyard, and again, we wanted to retain the hedges on the west side to ensure the current landscaping will be intact while following the new landscape and planting list. This shows the rear of the home, with the patios again differing with cladding material and mirroring, and also shows the concrete walkways for each yard. When it comes to the landscaping, we followed a detailed landscape design, which complements the arborist report to show total retained replacement trees. There are 2 trees which will be retained, which will be outside the immediate disturbance zone by construction, which are under the arborist revision that no tree will be damaged. The driveway proposed is the minimum size possible and still being accessible to the separate garages for each duplex while meeting city requirements. The landscape design showcases the concrete walkways around the unit, which will not impede the city boulevard. We try to reduce the hardscaping to maximize the softscaping as much as we could. Page 2 shows the continued landscape design, which includes the plant list while being consistent with the renderings and architectural design. In all, this project will replace a small aging home to 2 modern homes, which will help the urgent need for more housing. And that concludes our presentation, and I'd like to thank the panel for the opportunity to present the design at 14539 Oxenham Avenue. Thank you. That's it, Chair. And if there's any questions or.
You're muted, Phil.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear.
All right, you all heard what I did. I was really sorry about that. So now we move into questions for clarification, questions from the panel members to the applicant for clarification of what's being proposed. So Faye, Jim, or Rashir, any of you want to start? Otherwise, I'll pick on you.
I have a question about the backyard. If you can go to the slide that shows the backyard, you've got the cedar hedges around the parameter of the backyard.
Yeah, let me just get back there.
Oh, I should have advised everybody, recall that this is being recorded, a video of this meeting. Do you want the, Faye, do you want the rendering of for the backyard?
Well, on that photo, it shows the outline of the property in cedars. What's dividing the property? What will be dividing? So is it going to be one big backyard?
Oh, can I make a suggestion? I had that same question. Harbinger,
Okay.
go but there's a fence between them in the backyard. But it's not shown in the renderings, but it's shown on the design, the detailed design. Perhaps you can show that, or just say that it's a 6-foot fence or a cedar fence between the two that divides the backyard. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right, Phil. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the shared back here, but yeah, that is correct. And the report has that on the west side, we will maintain the hedging that's already there. And there is a fence on each side of that are 6 feet on the back, the rear side and the side. Yes, Faye. Sorry about that. We should have shown that.
No problem.
Yeah.
I just, from the photo, it looks.
So big backyard is divided with a fence, a cedar fence.
That's right. Yeah, currently it is already like that. Yes. And the hedging on the west.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't we leave the screen share up that somebody can manage well, and I'll try to look at the small photos, pictures of you to see who wants to talk. Faye, did you have any other questions?
No, that was the only question I had.
Rashir, since we're talking about outside, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question about this western hedge being retained. If you zoom into the plan on the left side, the survey shows the hedging, a very light underlay in the survey shows majority of the hedge being on this side of the property and some on the adjacent sides as well. Whereas on your landscape design and on the renderings, you show a concrete walkway hugging the building, which obviously will not leave enough space for the hedging. Do you have the center points, the ticks where the hedge plants actually exist, and whether they are on this property or adjacent property?
So for the hedging, Rashir, what happened was we needed to have the walkway had to be made with concrete if we had permission from the west side folks, which we have a letter from them that is received. So the points that you need, I can ask the landscaper to design to add that on there. But as I said, one of the things that came up in the interdepartmental review was that, hey, if you're going to make a walkway there, you need to have permission from the folks on the west side, which we have already requested and sent over to the city.
No, that's fine, no problem. Yes. I also appreciate the intent of retaining the hedge, because that's probably going to be your major source of separation from the western neighbor. However, the design as it is presented right now, with the corner points, etc., there isn't much space left for that hedge on this side of your property. So what I'm asking is the hedge wholly planted on the next door property, or is it actually on this property, which will need to be taken down? So
No.
I am unclear about the possibility of retaining that hedge given this design, unless more information is possible.
Okay, so if you look at the existing house, you could see that the current hedge, the way it is sitting there, it is sitting more towards the property that is on the west side. And that's the way that we've kind of looked at it. As I said, if we have to go back and look at to see if there's you need the points, then we can ask the landscaper design, the architect design to kind of give you that pinpoint on that.
No, my intent is that in order to succeed with this intention, you will need to establish where those plants are actually planted and whether they can actually accommodate a design and paving of this nature. That's all.
Okay. Okay.
And one more, can you show me one of the renderings that shows the front yard, the sloping driveway, and can you bring that on screen?
Is the presentation not shared right now? Can you guys see it?
No, I can see this. There was a rendering that I saw in our package. Anything the front rendering.
Yeah, I'm just getting it. No, can you see this? Can I? Is my screen shared right now?
Oh yeah, it is. It is.
Good.
No,
Good.
no, sorry, Harbinder, it's my screen that's shared because I was
Oh,
letting.
okay.
Yeah, but I can pull it up here. Yeah.
Okay. There's another one, Neetu, which is from us. Yes, that's good enough. That's good enough. The previous one. Yeah, that's good enough too. Okay. Now you see the path coming next to the driveway. It comes and abruptly ends in a lawn. And the driveway, the vehicular driveway that leads to the garage does not connect with that path. Is that intentional?
Sorry for on the top there.
Yes, where you see the path going leading to the backyard, and then the vehicular driveway, they are not connected. And there's a grass, there's a soft scape between the two. So a person using this would have to come on the driveway, step on the grass, and then step back on the pathway. Is that intentional?
No, that is required as by city because that's the boulevard. So we couldn't put any hardscape on there. So that's why we had to change it. Otherwise, we had initially asked to have like a paver or something because we understand that's the same thing we were trying to do. But unfortunately, as per city requirements, we are not allowed to hardscape or anything on the boulevard. So that becomes into the city boulevard from what I know and what I read from the report.
So couldn't that connection be achieved by a little bit of a connection between that planting that you've shown within your property, not on the boulevard?
We can try to do that. As you can see where from the walkway to the greenscape there, like where the grass is, it still dips down, right? That's boulders next to it. So the only thing is if we're allowed to do pavers there, that's the only way I can think of it. But we can come up with something else and try to see if there's any way we can do that. We actually had it initially, but we're open to that if there's something that we can add on internally. But also the driveway, that's the requirements too, the minimum requirements. That's how much driveway we need to put into. So that's why where it ends there, it's hard to get any more connection between the walkway and the grass.
Okay, last question on this rendering itself. If you see on the main floor, you've got large surfaces of I think it's sliding doors, or I don't know what it is.
Yes.
Very large glass. Is that going to be the way it is, or it's going to be divided and it's going to be sliding? Because it's rather unclear what you intend in terms of the opening there, leading on to the balcony in front.
That's right. Originally, we had accordion doors coming there, but now we've decided that we'll do sliding doors for both of those, as what is shown there.
So you'll have those like 6 feet wide by 7 feet tall panels?
Yeah, that's the new sliding doors that we would put in, correct. We had decided to do accordion doors going left to right as per original, but now we're going to be going to this route.
Yeah, it looks like a rather
Large door.
too big of a sliding panel. I don't know whether you've taken details or pricing of this. This looks rather difficult to achieve rather than something akin to what you have on top in terms of proportion. But yeah, those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Jim, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think they've been answered. The only one is, sorry, Harbinder, you said you're the owner?
That's right, yes.
Okay, so the designer of the project is not here?
No, unfortunately not. The landscape designer is on holidays. The designer was busy, so I am the guy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's my only question.
Okay, so now I have some questions, and it's Faye and Rashir. We're all thinking alike about some issues. So stay on this photo, on this rendering. So clarify, I think I got it from your answer to Rashir. The city property line, your property line versus the city is right at the edge of where the walkway starts. That is when you said the boulevard, that's city property, that's where the grass is?
That's right. Right where our driveway starts, that is, after that is where the grass is the boulevard, is the boulevard, yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that here's my speculation, that in order to have a slope of less than 15 degrees, that you had to start the driveway at that, go all the way, your driveway, the slope. I've lost, yeah, that, anyway, it's all constrained. Anyway, you've answered the question. I won't make a comment yet. Path from the street. The front doors on this rendering, go to the next rendering or the one before, that's a front view of it. Yeah, that's it. When I look at this, now I know it's a rendering and it doesn't have everything in it by any means, but there are several places I've seen this look, which is that I'm looking into those big windows on the main floor and I look through and it looks like there are other windows there. Am I missing something? In the room on the other side, are there windows?
Yeah, so basically there's no internal design. So what you're seeing is the backyard windows. That's what you're saying. Yes, yeah. Because there's no internal design and we only did the exterior as per the ADP requirements. So yeah, so that's how that works.
Okay, that clarifies. Now the setback from the neighbors, I'm looking at this relative to, again, we've got just a rendering, but I couldn't tell from the detailed design and the property line that we just talked about, that how much is, I know those are older homes that may change in the near future, but currently, what's your setback of the front of your proposal relative to the front of the neighbors on either side?
It is actually, it's aligned pretty much with the yard, so it is similar to that. The setback, it's actually, it kind of aligns with the other two, as you can see, but that's what we were trying to accomplish, that we weren't trying to go back too back, so we have a yard, so the setbacks aren't that much. So they kind of align with the older homes.
So and that's good, but you could move back a meter, am I correct? You could move back a meter to get that walkway that Rashir, which was something that was of my area, something I was going to raise also about the walkway on the grass. You could move back theoretically, well, more than theoretically, move back everything about a meter or a couple of feet.
If city allows it, we don't have an issue with doing that. I mean, we're just following, as I said, we went back and forth a lot, Phil, on this, and we kind of, and the driveway was a big issue because we wanted it to not slope as much, but obviously we have to meet the 15% off-street parking space requirement and the constraints. So that's if that's the case, then we have to move back a meter and we lose a little bit on the yard. It's not an issue as long as the front, it makes sense. And we're okay if the city requirements.
Okay, I'm going to keep going a little bit. I've got 3 more areas here. One is about the solar gain in the front. And if you go to your, I think this is just a mistake, but on page, in your, this is the guidelines, the table, I don't know what it's called, your answers to the guidelines. It says 2-foot overhangs at minimum around entire house. I'm not sure what I'm looking at it. It is a rendering and I looked at the design, but it was kind of difficult to tell all this, but it says 2-foot overhangs at minimum around entire house and a large covered deck to control solar gain. And then it says on south facing facade rear yard. Well, the south facing is the front. And I'm looking at this and the solar gain here could be, because it is facing, the front is facing south. So that's a huge potential solar gain in those especially on the main floor. So I'm wondering if you have a response about that. That's a comment, but my question is, there's a mistake in filling in the thing about what's south facing, and can you just comment about solar gain on the front?
Yeah, so I think that's probably just a mistake that's made on the infill, but I'll have to again double check to see if that's the right answer on that. The solar gain, obviously, making sure that you know, the windows and the roof lines, and making sure that we're okay with the exposure for anything on the front side. So that's all we're looking at there. You know, with the modern design. For the infill, we can look into that just as because that was kind of filled out by the designer. So I will have to kind of just confirm with him. Maybe it is just an oversight on their part.
Yeah, in some ways, some of my questions are perhaps unfair because you're not the architect, but I know you're doing this best you can.
No, these are good because then I can go back and at least confirm some of these things too for you. But from what I know, that if the south side, they should know which way is facing which. So that could be just oversight on their part. Okay,
so now to questions, and I'm going to try to stay away from comments. Is there a reason that a tree is not being planted in the front right side? If you well, the answer is because it's city property.
It's the boulevard. Even we had see the tree on the left side, or the hedge on the left side, and we were being requested to remove that too on the west side. There's a hedge that's by itself on the front. The arborist report actually had said to retain 3 trees, and but the city came back with the interdepartmental comments, and that will have to remove too. So, and then there's a $1,500 value. So there's nothing that can be placed on the boulevard in the front there.
So let me try to understand this, and I don't know if staff is gonna help or not. Anne is going to help. All right. Why that tree would be removed? I mean, the city's trying to plant trees, find places to plant trees. You've answered. I think I now understand why your proposal isn't to build it, because it's not your property; it's city property. That's so it's right. A question for staff: is can trees? Now we've got a trees being removed, and whether the city has any plans to plant trees on the front yard, in part because the guidelines say to try to screen garages. So I'll leave Anne. Your hand is up. I'll call. You can help me, I'm sure.
Sure, I'll try. I won't have all the specifics because some of this does come directly from engineering, and I won't be able to speak to all of their considerations. We do, Oxenham, there are long-term plans to install a sidewalk along this side of Oxenham. So the city would not be looking to see additional trees planted that we might ultimately be damaging in the long run or have to remove in the long run when the sidewalk ultimately happens. So that is still out in the long term, but our goal would be to make sure that we would collect the funds that the applicant just mentioned, so that could be attributed towards future tree planting either here or elsewhere in the community as needed. So that's sort of the big picture when it comes to Oxenham.
Okay. All right, thank you. And my last question is, could you clarify on maybe it's on the landscape design, or this one that we're looking at right now may do. You talked about, there's a talk about pervious versus impervious materials, and the wording that's used is concrete. So is this actually poured concrete for both the driveway and all the walkways?
So far, yes, that's what we're trying to implement. It's just the concrete walkways. We haven't, and I know it kind of follows if you look at the older home on Oxenham, the current duplex, that's what kind of concrete we're looking at. So that picture on slide 4 kind of gives you a vision of what we were trying to do. Similar to what, but trying to make it more of a modern home and for the current time. But yeah, this is kind of what we're looking at, Phil.
Okay, just as an answer, it is poured concrete for all of those hard surfaces. That's a clarification. Okay.
That's right. That's right, Phil.
Thank you. Roof color, again, dealing with solar gain. Is there a material chosen and color chosen for the roof material?
Currently, what we were just looking at was asphalt, and we're looking color was just going to be the black asphalt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think, let me check my notes. I think that's all my questions. Thank you. Okay. So any other question, going back to questions or from panel members or clarifications or comments from staff? Otherwise, we'll go to, we'll keep moving. Anything from panel members? Questions, not comments yet? No? Okay. And staff, any comments or that you'd like to add, or should we just move on? All right. Okay, so let's go to comments. And here's the way I'd like to do this. We'll go, it's not just one round. We'll do one round and then see if people have more comments to make after they hear what other panel members have to say. So who wants to start?
Bill, I'll be happy to start.
Okay, good. Thanks, Jim.
All right, thanks. Can we get the renderings back up by any chance? Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the attempt to make the units look different, to individualize the two. I think it needs some work in that department. It's still, overall, the project still looks kind of like one big building that's split down the middle with some material change on the surface. The actual, a good example is that, I think it's across the street, that Neighbourhood example that you showed. And I know that, Harbinder, you're not the designer, so it's, it's unfortunate that he or she isn't here, but if we look at some of the specific issues, the material changes. First of all, the south elevation, the front elevation is flat essentially, and then these materials change and they come together on the same plane. That's always a difficult transition. It's better to have some kind of offset. So what I'm saying is you're creating this difference between changing materials by changing materials when you really should be creating shifts in the volume. The roof line changes. I can appreciate that on the front, but I think you got to take it a step further. I think you got to really look at pushing and pulling the volumes to create some interest there, and that'll help with the transition of the materials. It was echoed, and I echo this comment about the solar gain. Passive solar is great. It does reduce the electric, the lighting and the heating requirements, but you got to remember the summer, the cooling is equal, if not greater, of a load when it comes to energy consumption. So look at deepening the balcony, creating overhangs. Could we go to that neighborhood shot of that duplex? It really does all these things. I'm not saying that it's the greatest piece of architecture ever, but it kind of does the things that we're talking about here.
Yeah, the fourth one.
The neighborhood home,
Yeah, this
neighboring home. So if you look there, they've got deeper overhangs, so they're creating some shading. They break the plane. Even though the materials are the same, they still look different. And the roof line changes. So, and also the big window that you're showing, they divide up into 4. So I think you may want to look at that as well. Just think about the solar gain and creating some shading. So that's the front. The rear, can we go to the rear perspective or elevation? Yeah, so this one is yes, you can tell it just looks like one big building that we've changed materials. Look at pushing and pulling here. Look at changing the heights of the roof lines. That looks a little too plain Jane. And then the guardrails. I don't think glass at grade is successful. It usually gets dirty really quick. It's not something that you're going to want to maintain. So I would encourage looking at a more solid, or maybe vertical spindles or something, different rail, not glass. I think the posts here are also a little too thin. So think about maybe incorporating the posts, thickening them up into some kind of guard rail system. The front as well, you've got guard. Glass guard is better at on second floor. You know, you need that visual openness and it doesn't get as dirty. But along the parking, or sorry, along the drive aisle, you've got glass. I would really recommend changing that. You don't need that. Again, like in that neighboring home detail, they've got that same sort of, they've thought that through. So I would take a look at that, get rid of the glass rail. Other than that, I mean, the colors themselves, they are pretty muted. It would be, maybe you want to look at some more contrast and make it pop a little bit more. I don't know the baby blue, if that's, I always think blue in buildings is not the most successful because you're competing against, you know, the sky and Mother Nature. You never can, and it kind of fades over time, at least the ones that I've seen. So maybe look at changing that color up. Yeah, I think that's for the first round. I think that those are the comments I have.
Thank you. Rushir?
Okay, can I go back to the front elevation that you had previously on?
And Anne, I recognize it's 4:30.
Yeah, that's fine. So I kind of agree with Jim's perception about the front. There could be a distinct effort made to differentiate between the two units. They seem rather symmetrical, except for a little change in roof line. The planes are similar. If you see the glass planes both on the main floor and second floor, they're also kind of symmetrical. That large sliding door that I talked about doesn't really sit well with me. I don't know whether that's practical. Also symmetrical, and there is a whole lot of coordination, I guess, articulation of open areas, of fenestrations, etc., windows, doors, etc., that need to be coordinated more effectively. But most effectively, I guess, there needs to be a distinction between both sides. Apart from that, I guess there can still be, all said and done, a reasonable amount of distinction possible in the kind of design that you are proposing. As Jim pointed out, just differentiating the planes, taking the concept that you have with roof lines, etc., you could work effectively. If you go to the backyard, just like we just saw the previous slide, this is almost 100% symmetrical. The windows are identical on either side. The roof line is the same. The roof line doesn't change. The material doesn't change. It's just a little bit of change of color, and that's about it. So this needs a lot of design development to be able to show effectively that both the units are separate. And I would really encourage to create an environment in your renderings which is similar or close to what the reality is going to be, by not ignoring something like a fence or separation between the two. That would kind of let the observers actually feel what it's going to be like. Let's go to the site plan a little bit, if you could. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is good. The land, this is fine. So I would encourage moving the entire building block a little further back in order to accommodate that little connection between driveway and the pathways, because it seems rather lost, orphaned end to those pathways into that grassy area. Moving by 3 feet or so, etc., would give you an opportunity of connecting the two, be able to have a more seamless experience moving towards the backyard. I don't think that western hedge is thought through as to how it's going to be retained, because I don't think it's going to be possible to retain that with the sidewalks, with the fencing, any other thing that I also see a window well somewhere there. A lot of things happening, and there isn't much of a separation or a soft strip between the property line and the proposed improvements. So unless all of those hedging plants are located in the next door property, and for some very careful preservation while construction with their root systems, etc., I don't see that they are going to be very successful in retention. There's a sliver of a soft area between the path and the property lines on either sides. I don't know if you can squeeze the building a little bit, create slightly more area after the pathway and between the property line to be able to create effective separation and hedging between this development and the next door. But that seems to be the only way. It looks like you've got reasonable setbacks both in the front and back. There might be a potential of, I don't know whether they're maximized, but if they're not, I would encourage increasing the proportion of the units to be longer and less wider to be able to create that more workable space site planning on both the east and the western sides. And as you move the units front and back to create those push-pull that Jim was referring to, there's a lot of potential in doing or playing with the plan forms, if you will, to be able to achieve those distinctions between the two sides. And also that will offer you a potential of creating a separation. Yeah, I think that's it. I also am not very confident if this kind of a driveway starting from the edge, because I'm sure you've kept it flat where the property is, where it's a city property, and you've started a 15% slope right at the edge. Usually you like to have a gradual increase to 5% for the first few meters and then do 15%. So please evaluate a possibility of whether the cars are possible to be ramped down to the respective garages from here, and whether there's going to be ample space, turning, going straight down, and the clash between the two, or whether the driveway will need to be widened a little bit. I don't know. But some careful planning and analysis needs to be done on that, I would think. If you go to the landscape plan now, if you see the one on the left, you have those columnar oak trees at the back, just one row of those oak trees at the back. Yes, they are columnar thin trees, but as they mature, at the eye level, you would only be seeing the trunks. The foliage would be above that, and that would not create effective separation or privacy between this property and the one behind. So the planting that is shown under those are rather smaller shrubs. So I would suggest doing a little section and trying to establish how are you trying to create a separation from the rear yard or property at the back. You might require to have bushy hedges in tandem with those trees, or have those trees instead of 6, maybe have just 4, and create an effective separation. Similarly, as I told you, there isn't a provision for separation both towards east and west, which effectively is lost because I guess that the applicants believe that the western hedge is going to be somehow successfully retained, which seems rather unlikely. So I guess by realigning the plan a little bit, emphasis should be given to establish how that planting or separation towards eastern and western neighbors is going to be. And even if that western hedge was somehow miraculously retained, I don't see a separation between the eastern neighbor and this property. So landscape wise, a lot of planning and three-dimensional perception needs to be taken care of to see how you are going to be creating a separation. I think those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you. Faye?
I just have a couple of comments.
Okay.
I do agree with Jim's comments and Rashir's comments regarding the design of the duplex, and that there's no distinct features separating the garage, the entrances, the garage doors, the balconies. I'm not an architect, but you might want to incorporate some kind of distinct boundary walls in the front to give a bit of a separation. If you look at the balcony, there's absolutely no separation. It's just probably a 3-foot high glass. There's not going to be any privacy. So, and even the driveway. So you're going to have how many cars parked on that driveway, and it's 2 separate homes, 2 separate homeowners. So you have to keep that in mind. Other than that, yeah, it looks good, but there is no separate, distinct features.
Okay.
Which is a requirement, I believe, with the OCP.
Okay, is that it, Faye, right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This overlaps considerably with my comments. I'm going to read them very quickly because we have to be aware that Rashir is going to leave in about half an hour. The issues for me were the difference between the homes. That's come up. The privacy between the homes, which hadn't until Faye mentioned it. I had the same concern about in the front and the back, that the separation. You don't want it to be, I mean, you want it to be open in a way, but not so that the people can't enjoy. Neighbors need to get along, but maybe not that much. Anyway, the privacy issue in the front and the back, and the difference in the design between the homes. I'm less worried about the difference in design in the back, because that's not that won't be seen by the neighborhood. Solar gain is an issue for me. I think that really needs to be addressed, whether that's both in terms of the windows and consideration of a different roof material or color of the roof. And I don't know if the city has suggestions for that, but the solar gain in the house is an issue. Rashir brought up the width of the sidewalks, and I think that's a good point. Not just because of the trees, but it's awfully, and I didn't look at the dimensions of what the sides of the building. Is that like a 2-foot concrete walkway, or I can't open up my design right now. Does anybody know what that dimension is there? Oh, there it is. It's right. There's a dimension there, I think. Anyway, it looks small. It looks narrow. It might be 2-3 feet, 2 feet. Anyway, it's an issue that is looked at. Permeability of the hardscape and the front path. I mean, it's really they're two separate issues, but the permeability, there's no need, except maybe on the sides there. But certainly the city is, but the area in the front, the sidewalk where it says concrete sidewalk and steps, that's on above the driveway. There's no need for that to be concrete. That should be permeable, and as much as permeable as possible. I don't know about the driveway in the city's consideration, but there's talk about more permeability. And the front path is, I think, an important issue. It's city property, but how to deal with that. And Rashir mentioned protection of the hedges, protection and retention of the hedges. So we're overlapping a lot on the same issues. And now it's not our job to redesign and make suggestions, but I think that maybe some movement of the house, whether it's, you got a big backyard, maybe you need to, as Rashir said, take it in a little bit and move it back a little. But that's not for us. We're just raising what we see as issues to be addressed. So that's it for my comments. Oh, that's it for my comments. Thank you. So do we want to go back around? Jim, you have any more in reaction to what others have said?
No further comments. I mean, I guess I just would encourage the designer to kind of strip all the materials away and try to make the two units distinctive without materials first. So look at the volumes and then apply the materials after. Think of it in those terms. But I think all other points have been raised. So yeah, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. But before we go on, I will make a comment that to the applicant, to Harbinder, that there's a video being taken of this, so your architect and landscape architect could look at a video of this meeting to get firsthand what we're saying. Or excellent. Okay, so Rashir, any further comments?
No, I think I'm okay. I think I've consolidated most of the thoughts I had on this, so that's good.
Okay, Faye, any further comments? Faye?
No, I don't have any further comments.
So where we are, and I don't have any further one, I've got a list of a number of general issues. So now we're left with a recommendation, and we can have, I would say there are three that seem plausible to me. In the staff report, you see the wording of we support the project proceeding to council as presented. That's one possibility. Another one, support the project proceeding to council subject to considerations specifics to be listed by the panel made to the satisfaction of staff. And that would, I presume if we did that, then that would include a list the important, not necessarily everything. I've got all sorts of things I could comment on about a window here or a window, you know, what are the particular things that we would point out and we'd say are important, and maybe it's that list that I summarized. But everybody, we'd have to come to a consensus on that. And the third one would be in terms of our terms of reference, which is defer the project pending the resolution of issues, again, to be listed, presumably it'd be the same list that we would come up of the issues, following which the application would be brought back to the panel. So we have those three, and I'm going to propose that the first one is not relevant. The first one of just as is, because we have raised a number of questions. So to me, it's a fundamental issue of not.
And I propose the third one be chosen for the sake of consistency, because in the past, if we felt or the other duplex projects that we've handled, that if we were not 100% satisfied, it should be brought back. So I would say, for the sake of consistency, I would propose the motion for the third recommendation.
So you are moving a motion for the third option that
Yes.
Okay, and we would need a seconder for that.
I second that, yeah.
Jim second. So we have a motion on the table. What it would be required is for us to come up with that list of issues. And then take a vote, or we can do two votes. One is their general, look, there are only four of us here. Can I ask Faye? Let's have a discussion of the motion, and without taking a vote on it yet, I'd like, because the question is whether or not we have to come up with a list of the main issues to come up. The applicant has heard, and the staff have heard everything we've said, but I think we need to point to what are the most important, or the ones that we need to see. Well, maybe it's all of them, I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
they're probably been minuted. So those points would go with it. We don't have to go over individually if we are going to deal with it. The minuted points will need to be addressed by the applicant, and it be brought back with those addressed comments is how it should go, I believe.
So let me be clear. Let me try to understand what you're saying. Is your motion now the list of the items that I mentioned?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that is your motion. So let me read that and see if we have a second, and make sure you're happy with that. So and these are not in any particular order other than what I wrote down. Solar gain, differentiation between the two homes, make more differentiation between the two homes, increased privacy between the two homes.
Right.
The width of the sidewalk is one I'm going to say consider, because I'm not sure what flexibility there, but Rashir, you want that to be consider widening? I guess that's what you're saying?
You mean the pathways on either side?
The side pathway.
I'm not just worried about the pathways. I'm more concerned about the space between the pathway and the boundary of the property, so on the property line. So it essentially means increasing the setbacks on either side.
Sorry, that's a much better way to put it. Increasing the setback.
Yeah.
The setbacks on the sides in order to ensure protection and retention of the hedges or something, but to clarify.
Yes, or privacy, or enhance privacy.
And enhance.
Okay, that's a good one.
That's a better way of putting it. And the last two are the permeability of the hardscape and having a front path. Yeah. From the, is there? I'm the only one that raised.
I can articulate it if you want. It could be create workable access to the side. The side paths leading to the backyard with distinct connections from the driveway.
That's also from the driveway to the front doors.
Yeah, sure.
Right, without having to go through the home.
Yeah.
Do we, need to, the staff, you've got well, you can always re-listen to this wonderful video of us to get that down. But I gather, I mean, I think, is there anything else that the committee, before, this is the motion, is that understood by everyone, that these are the main issues? They're fairly general, and some of them are interrelated. That is there anything else that the members would like to add to this? That I think nothing, without raising something new.
No, these are just the main points. There are quite a few finer points that the panel raised,
Right.
And that list is going to go along with it.
Okay, good. And do we have a second for now? Because this is your motion here with that list.
I'll
and
second it.
seconding it. All right. Now let's have a discussion of the motion, which includes the list. Jim, Faye, Bashir, I think you're okay with this. Faye, you're okay with this list and
Yes.
the motion. Jim, any comments?
No, I think as long as some of the finer comments that we talked about are reflected in the minutes, then
It'll be in the video, not the minutes, I think.
it'll be in the video.
The minutes tend to be a little bit, well, we'll have to see what the minutes are like. Because
Yeah, the minutes from the last one were fairly detailed, I thought, as long as they're picked up somehow, video or minutes, yeah.
Okay. One way or the other, yeah. Okay, anything else? Otherwise, I'll call a vote. All right, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. We still have a few minutes. Actually, we'll go to the adoption of the minutes of the May 17th meeting. Oh, first of all, is there anything before I move on to this about this application that staff or Harbinder, the applicant, wants to address or ask us or comment? Or should we move on?
No, that's fine. I'll get the landscape design and the architect and take your comments and work on it, and then we'll come back to it. And
Thank you very much.
We get
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
We're trying to add value to things.
Of course.
Before I move on, because I can't leave a meeting like this without making the comment, consider putting in 240 volts into the garages for future electric vehicles. Okay.
Sounds good, yes.
Didn't want to raise it as a formal part of this. Okay, so now the minutes, so we're moving on to the minutes of the May 17th meeting. So can I have a motion to adopt?
Sure, I would move the motion to adopt.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Faye seconds. All right.
It's a-
So now before this opens the discussion, and I'm going to move an amendment. And I'm that if you look at the minutes, do you have them in front of you? This is on May 17th. It's about the adoption of the minutes on March 15th. That's section 3. And it says it was moved and seconded that the advisory design panel adopts the minutes from March 17th meeting as circulated, and then it says carried, and there wasn't actually a vote. So I'm moving an amendment to the minutes that we remove the word carried, and instead it goes on and then says members, so there was an amendment to that motion to amend the minutes to say a member of the panel recommends rather than the panel recommends. And that amendment was moved and seconded. And we don't have to say who would, it says Paul and Faye on that one, but actually it was me, and then Paul said I couldn't do it, but in fact, I could. But Paul, in fact, under rules, is not allowed to amend a motion that he moved, which was the first one. So if we want to get sticky, which I never like to do, all we'll say it was moved and seconded. We don't have to say who did it and for the amendment. We didn't take separate votes on the amendment and then the amended motion. We took one vote on the amended motion because there was consensus we could see. So I'm going to want these minutes I'm moving to amend these minutes to take out the first carried, and then to say there was a motion to amend the minutes to say, then it goes on, and it was moved and seconded, and the amended minutes were voted on and carried. There was one vote. Is that too complicated? Have I completely messed up this explanation, or is that clear?
It's kind of clear, Phil, except you brought up the date March the 17th. You meant March 15th.
15th.
Correct?
March
Okay,
15th.
okay.
So I guess the key question, Anne wants to make a comment, so let's see what Anne has to do to correct me.
We can make the change to the motion if the first motion to adopt wasn't actually carried. That we're certainly happy to make those corrections. It is our practice, however, to note who moves and who seconded. So I would recommend that if you make this amendment, you carry on including that in your amendment.
Okay, that's fine. Then what'll happen is you can say, I moved it because I did initially move it. And it was Paul that said I couldn't do this. So I said, Paul, you move it. But Paul's not allowed to move it. So I'm taking back the moving of that motion, and then Faye seconded it. All right. Does that, okay?
Sure.
And then there was one vote, and I said we're to vote on the amended motion, to the adoption of the amended minutes. And that carried unanimously.
Okay.
Okay, so now we need to take, so I've moved this amendment. And I have a second to the amendment. That can be anybody.
Sure. That would be me.
Okay, and then let's vote. We're supposed to take two votes, I think. One is on the amendment. Is there a vote to approve, not the minutes, but the amendment to the minutes?
Sure. Here.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Jim's all right, I guess.
Good.
And then now a second vote to approve the amended minutes.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and we've never been this formal before, or never had so many.
And there's only 4 of us.
Yeah, well, thank God. All right. So we'll sort this out. I don't think it's good. I mean, we're getting our feet wet in terms of some of these minute issues, and I know there's new staff also dealing with it, but this will all get sorted out. So now it's 5:00. Oh, it's only 5 o'clock. We've got more time, but I don't want to use it if we don't need to. So is there anything else so we've finished the agenda, but before, we don't have something that's about other business. I just want to open it up to see, not to waste time, but it's an opportunity to see if there's any other issue for ADP with the 4 members here. Anybody? Otherwise, no? Staff?
I do have a question. At this point, do you think there will be a meeting in August?
Thank you for raising that.
Yeah.
Do we know?
I'm sorry, my mouse refused to move. I had a stubborn mouse. It will depend. At this point, we don't know for certain. It's going to depend. This application may, be able to turn things around, for example, and come back. It may not. But I can't say for certain at this point. I'm sorry. I know everyone's probably got summer plans and would love to know in advance.
It's not a definite no. Okay, that's what's important.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's August 16th. Do we know among the 4 of us whether or not that's a problem? Any of the 4 of us know that you would not be here?
I'm
No,
not.
You're gone, Faye.
Yeah.
I should be here on 16th.
Yeah, I have to still figure that out. I might not be, but I've got tentative plans.
Okay, I should be around, but we need to either Jim or Joe, but we'll figure it out. Okay, if in fact there's an application. All right, thank you. So can I have a motion to end the meeting, a conclusion to?
Okay. Here.
Okay,
Here.
and moved, Faye seconded to end the meeting, close